The Nigerian side packed with talent, and this, the national anthem. Well, add to these names that you've just been seeing: Daniel Amokachi of FC Bruges, George Finidi of Ajax, Efan Okoko of Norwich, Austin Okocha of Eintracht, and Victor Ekpiba of Monaco, who hasn't even been used in this tournament yet. And then you can imagine what power they have. Now, the Zambian national anthem. An emotional moment for the Zambians, and something of a miracle that they got to the final after that terrible tragedy. And their captain, Kalusha Bwalya, said in a quote yesterday, "We'll say a prayer for our dead comrades before the match, but then we'll be on our own." Well, of course, they realize just how important this game is for them. As I said, the Nigerian side so replete with talent that even Victor Ekpiba, who's a very important man in French football and in the Champions League with Monaco, hasn't been used in this tournament because he says he doesn't get on with the coach. But take all these names I've been mentioning: Yekini, Amokachi, Finidi, Okoko, Okocha, and you can see they have awesome power up front. Nigeria perhaps don't have the midfield style of, say, the Ivory Coast, or indeed perhaps of Zambia here, and their central defence isn't in the first flush of youth, but these have proved to be of no great liabilities in this tournament so far. The Zambians acknowledging their supporters in the crowd. Well, I was talking to John Fashanu just before the game, and of course John was very closely associated with the very charitable efforts that were made to resurrect the Zambian football side. It was he, of course, who virtually appointed Ian Porterfield. He liked the way Ian Porterfield approached the game, said he would be able to work with the African nations very well. And indeed that is so. Ian Porterfield has organized them so well that they haven't conceded a goal in the tournament. So we've got a side which has proved itself defensively against a powerful attacking team. There, the great Pele signing autographs already. And as I said, we also have in the stadium Platini and Bobby Charlton. All the dignitaries from around the continent here. The president of the African Football Association, Ida Hayat, is here as well. The Tunisian president, who will present the cup at the end. And we look back to that cup final 2 years ago, which went into extra time at a penalty finish between the Ivory Coast and Ghana, with the Ivory Coast becoming the champions by 11 penalties to 10. Well, I think Clemens Westerhoff at the end there knows that if he loses this game, he'll be on his bike. I don't think the Nigerian authorities would perhaps absorb the indignity of being beaten by Zambia. There, the player of the tournament as far as I'm concerned, Rashid Yekini. I don't know whether you've been watching our coverage in Eurosport or not, but he scored a quite amazing goal against Zaire. And I think the great Pelé himself, sitting in the stand, would have been proud of it. A ball played into the penalty area, controlled it with the outside of his right foot, and then, fraction of a second later, with the same foot, drove it into the back of the net. So that is the kind of quality this very brave, courageous and spirited Zambian side will face up to this afternoon. That's how they play. They've never won this title yet. The Nigerians have won it once before. The referee, Chong, about to start this game. And off we go into the first half. Zambia, of course, in the green jerseys, Nigeria in the white. And back there, right away, the Zambian formation with the goalkeeper who missed the previous game, having been fit enough, past the fitness test, James Philly, to get into the side again. He was very, very good indeed. So that is a bonus to them that they got him fit. Watch number 2 for Zambia at the back, Chong. He is a man around whom the defense swivels. Modern Malatoli will be on the right of defense, Chiyangi on the left. Litana right in the middle of the field. Sakala and Kalusha will join him there. And up front, Sayeti with Chilumba, Bwala and Malatoli. The other Malatoli just behind him, playing roughly that 4-3-3. And up front for Nigeria, of course, these two great attackers, Amakachi and Yakini. And Amoniki almost getting away there. Rather nervy start by the Zambian defense. But I think you'll find they're warm to the task very quickly. Easily beating Mali in the semi-final by 4 goals to 0. And of course, Nigeria had that amazing penalty shootout with the Ivory Coast. And appropriately, Yakini scoring the inevitable penalty kick, the one that really mattered. That's the man I was talking about, James Philly. He had a thigh injury. Managed to get him back into harness again for this game. A lot of European coaches and scouts out here. Although John Fashanu was saying he hasn't come across an English agent yet, which he finds rather surprising. Going away with their Eguavern. Now I think significantly again for Nigeria, as that's picked up by Amakachi. Finidi, it's a tempting one, Yakini. Where was the marking? And the goalkeeper, Fili, fumbling that. Well, having spoken highly of this Zambian defense, quite astonishing that nervousness. Malatoli fighting very hard in midfield, putting it out there, given support by Chiyangi. I think that might be a corner kick. First of the game. And Zambia, I think, getting over nerves here, or at least trying to. Another corner kick. Back there in defense. Okichucho, or Oche as he's sometimes called. The Dutchman, coach of Nigeria, looking on anxiously. The next corner. Rufai hesitating. Brilliant goal! Litana! And a shock start to this game. What I talked about nerves. Surely this Nigerian defense suffering there. Look, a clutch of white jerseys, the goalkeeper on the line. He didn't go for it. And up went Litana, solidly into the back of the net. 4 minutes gone. And surprisingly, Zambia in the lead. Wonderful jump by the defender, did very well indeed. Elijah Litana, his first goal of the tournament. And now Nigeria have got to come out. Pushed back there by Olise. Well then, quite clearly, Nigeria missing the presence of Stephen Keshi in midfield. He's on the bench this afternoon. He really is the captain of the side. Okafor, the substitute captain this afternoon. And Keshi troubled with a thigh injury as well. This is Nigeria fighting back on that. A thrust there by Amunike, Emmanuel Amunike, only 20 years of age. And one of the young crop of talent coming through for Nigeria. Well, I'm quite sure the Nigerian players are smarting under that blow. They didn't expect that one. Up and over, that's equaliser! The goal coming so quickly there from the man I was mentioning, Amunike. 5.5 minutes gone. Nigeria are back on level terms. A drooping header there, should have been covered. And Amunike coming in from the left, neat positioning, and just puts it away. I think it may have come off Litana himself there. It didn't matter. It was bound for the back of the net. And what a marvellously entertaining start we've had to this match. 2 goals in the opening 5 minutes. Well, I did say at the start of this tournament I was a little bit worried about some of the negative play we saw. That was partly due to the organisation of the tournament, which meant it was rather easy for teams to read exactly what they had to do to proceed. And now in this knockout from the quarterfinals onward, we've had some marvellous games. Ghana against Ivory Coast, superb. And then the Ivory Coast against Nigeria, and now this one, 2 goals in 5 minutes. I think that will do any paying customer anywhere in the world, as that defence looks slack again. And coming forward, Malatoli. Malatoli coming forward very strongly. The man who plays his football in Esperance in Tripoli. Little touch on there. Amokachi trying to get it. Not seen much of Amokachi yet, nor of Yukini, but there's a long, long way to go. What I find about Nigeria is sometimes they looked extremely bland in midfield. And then suddenly they had these explosive finishes with Amokachi or Finidi or Yukini busting through in long runs. I think we'll see that again. And really, Zambia did need to hold out. That was a marvellous start for them there. While neither defence looking at all confident at the moment. Once again, Malatoli picking that up. Kenneth Malatoli had some experience of European club football when he played for Cercle Bruges. 7 years there, in fact. Wester hop out of his bench there, hopping up and down, and we had the Henry Kasperjak, the coach of the Ivory Coast. He was sent to the stand in the semi-final when they were playing Nigeria. As things got rough, and Amokachi considered he might have got a free kick out of that. Daniel Amokachi, who made his debut in this tournament at the tender age of 17. This is where I said Nigeria don't have the fluency that we saw from the Gold Coast in midfield. So what they try to do is play balls just beyond the defence, get the running power of the likes of Yukini, and that was Amunike, the goal scorer, trying to fend it through to him. I think he's going to get a free kick out of that as well. Yes, very late tackle there. Tackle there by Malatoli. Two Malatolis playing in this. Mordon Malatoli and number 12, Kenneth Malatoli. Well, again, I hope you were watching our coverage of Nigeria playing, because in the very first game against Gabon, Yekini scored the most amazing free kick. Powerful, curving, unstoppable. So he might have a go at this one again. Hovering round it, and this time it was Okocha who tried it. There's the defense breaking. Finidi away wide right. Picked up here by Iroha. What a great little goal he scored in the semi-final. Finidi, little spin in that though. All Nigeria at the moment. And the ladies tackle again. I think he'll recover from that all right. The crowd vastly enjoying this. Free kick to Nigeria, taken by Okocha. Austin Okocha plays in the Bundesliga for Eintracht. What a powerful player he is. He doesn't exactly introduce subtlety into the game, but I think the whole Nigerian philosophy is based on strength, backed up by undoubted skill. I'm not saying they don't have that, they most certainly have. But at the basis of it is powerful running. Cleared by Malatoli. Well, I think they'll be missing the influence of Stephen Keshi, the Nigerians at the back. He's been troubled by a chronic knee injury, managed to recover for this tournament and then sustained a thigh injury, which has put him on the bench this time. And I think the very sight of an experienced player like that on the bench, knowing that he could come on and tighten up defense if Nigeria were in the lead, must be comforting to his colleagues. This is Joe Bwalia, the brother of Kalusha. Broken up there, Okafor, the man who was brought in and pushed forward to Amunike. His runs are proving promising now. Amunike trying to get a little 1-2 from Amakachi. This is Yekini. As I said, I think a lot of scouts will be queuing up to get hold of Yekini if he can be prized away from Setúbal in Portugal. The only reservation you make about Yekini is he's 30 years of age, so if he wants to make any progress and go to one of the bigger clubs in Europe, it really has got to be now, as the agent was telling John Fashioner the other night. Well, Zambia play a lot of this neat football, but they don't have the penetration that Nigeria have. Oh, Yekini roughly treated there. I think they're being told no mercy for this man. The man going in on the tackle there, Harrison Chongo, 24 years of age. Well, I think the television director is quite fascinated by this coach. We haven't had a really decent view yet of the British coach, Ian Porterfield, who's done an absolutely remarkable job with Zaire. This is the man at the back who was unceremonious in the way he treated Yekini there. Chongo. Headed high in the air by Malatoli. The play very untidy at the moment. Long high, way down to Amunike. Okocha trying a run and a little shot on his own, and I think he may have been put off by the fact that Yekini ran across his side of vision. Regular in that Eintracht side, and some of the Bundesliga teams have been. But there's Ian Porterfield now, right in the middle of the field, and he must have been the bench. He must have been absolutely delighted with that opening goal by the Tana. I think what must have pleased him was the fact that he realizes that Zambia will have to pull out all the stops in this game and utilize these set positions like corner kicks and free kicks. And it paid off for them then. I make it almost 15 minutes gone, one each, in a game that's settled down into what looks to be, at the moment, a war of attrition in midfield. Nobody gaining supremacy. There's Porterfield. Bit of a hero up in Sunderland, of course, for that goal he scored in the FA Cup final. Well, I remember it. Ball on the thigh first and then prodded into the goal. Sort of goal he'd like to see one of his Zambian proteges score this afternoon. And I've got to watch this man coming forward, Iroha. He set up and finished the move. Yekini at the back. Yekini will certainly take advantage of little slips like that. And a very mean look on his face there, angry with himself. I think the angle was very fine indeed. Maybe not at all surprising it ended up like that. Only himself to blame though. And this rhythm in the background will go on the entire game. What I liked about it, it didn't seem to reflect what was happening in the field. There was a little bit of despondency about sets of supporters, but their rhythm went on and on. Well, Nigeria played a marvellous game, a very competitive game that went right to the end. Contrast of styles when they played in the semi-final against the Ivory Coast. And it should be recalled that Zambia beat the Ivory Coast 1-0. So that might be a gauge, a slight gauge as to how this game would go. Good play by Okocha. But look, hardly any support around him. Back to Iroha. Unique Amunike just inside. And coming back deep, Joe Balya. Well, they build up the moves very neatly, as I said. Punishing run there by Sakala. And I pointed out that number 10 for Nigeria, Okocha, did a lot of powerful work. But here's Kalusha. Now, Kalusha really is their star player. PSV Eindhoven player, another experienced man, of course, 30 years of age. And I think he's made it clear that this will be his last tournament, so it's an emotional occasion for him. He, the man who said they would be on their knees praying for the dead colleagues before this game. And Porterfield's influence, obviously, telling players in that position to think their way through a game. They're not giving the ball away easily. They're trying to be creative and productive every time they get the ball in midfield, and that's a very good sign for them. Tackle there, I think he got a knock in the face, Mordun Malatoli. A cosmopolitan crowd in to see this, and oh yeah, you can see that knock just above the left eye. And given the FIFA regulations, they'll have to stop the bleeding, and perhaps he's going off to get a stitch in it. Well, there have been a lot of stretcher cases in this tournament, not so much because of the seriousness of the injuries, but they wanted the players tended to quickly and let the play flow, and that's not a bad idea. Amokachi on the far side. Aguave, Yekini, can he bet it back? Oh, just off the line, and the goalkeeper is very fortunate. And the trouble for Nigeria there is Yekini had come so quickly forward, the support wasn't there when it was needed. And most fortunate James Firian goal. Remember, they've just conceded their first goal in this tournament. Amunike, that was the goal scorer. The first player to score against Zambia in this tournament. His second shot, he didn't get it cleanly enough though. And once again, Yakini up to give support. Well, I think you'll find Iroha here trying to come forward when he thinks it's safe enough to do so. Brilliant play by Okocha. Amunike, I thought he was being held back there. That could be a penalty kick. Well, the referee waving play on there. Now watch this again. He was being impeded to start off with. Now the referee was right on top of that. But quite frankly, in more cases than not, I think a referee would have given a penalty kick for that. There's no doubt there was a collision. And I think there's cause for the Nigerians to be angry about that one. I think by normal standards, the referee would have pointed to the penalty spot. There's the stitching, I think, and the protection. There he is, Pele. Snubbed by Yo Haviland in the United States at the World Cup Finals draw, but still perhaps the most popular footballer in the world. And justifiably, not because of his prowess in the field as such, but the demeanor, stature of the man as an ambassador of goodwill for football everywhere. And he's also made a buck or two doing it as well. Yakini. Ooh, too obvious, but Zambian defense not coming for that quickly enough. Okocha. But on the Zambians fighting for every ball. Well, on he comes again. The courage of Mordon Malatoli. Plays his football for Nkana Red Devils. And there's a bit of redness about his face in that wound that he received. Coaching staff of Zambia a bit concerned about their player, but I think he'll struggle on. I now make it. We've played 21 minutes, still one each. Yakini gets that back. Played away by Sakala. Trying to get that ball down to Sayaleti up front. Sweeping at the back, though, is Okafor, the immediate replacement for Stephen Keshi. Remarkable record Keshi has. I'm quite sure if Nigeria are leading, they'll bring him on in this game as a tribute to his staying prowess and his stature, because this would be his 4th African Nations Cup final. Loud shout there for the defense to come right across. At the back, Okafor. That's precisely what Nigeria tried to do. If they're hemmed in like that, they try to find Yakini or Finidi or Amokachi up front. Got away by Litana, the goal scorer. Very good in the air indeed, as we saw at that goal. They're trying to get as many players forward as they can there. The shot, as it came in there from the player I was mentioning, Sayaleti, left almost on his own up front. Well, I think there'll be a bit of controversy about that man. Chong from Mauritius, the referee. He seemed to think no penalty, just turned away from it. And now the Nigerian coach, Clemens Westerhoff. Got to watch the man at the back there, Litana. This time they do watch him. Away comes Daniel Amokachi. looking towards Finidi, but nowhere near him. And indeed, Finidi has had absolutely no service in this game at all. Loud whistling in the crowd there. Iroha has scored 2 goals, the second of which was a real beauty. Throw to Zambia. The score at the moment, if you're joining us and you're watching Zambia in the green against Nigeria, the favourites, in the white, in the final of the African Nations Cup. The score is 1-1. 2 goals coming in the first 5 minutes. And away they break again. Amakatchi to Yukini, who's brought down. No doubt about that. Litana, the opening goal scorer, may well get a booking for this. Neatly pushed through, and Yukini getting the treatment. And Ian Porterfield has obviously read the danger of this man. Well, you wouldn't need to be a genius to work that one out, and he's been very closely marked. The treatment has been pretty rough, to say the least. And there's another free kick. Now, I don't know what's going through Yukini's mind. Is he going to try it from way out? Comes forward, bullets it in, marvellous shot. I doubt if there's anywhere in the world you will find a player who can hit the ball with such power from such a tight position like that and keep it within the target zone. And that's why I said scouts will be queuing up to get this man. He's got a good 3 years left in him of football. At the age of 30, there's a header down. What a marvellous player he is. First on the ground, then in the air. And that's what Zambia have to face all afternoon. The game seemed to have died a death in the last 10 to 15 minutes. Nothing really very creative in midfield, and then suddenly this man busts and explodes on the scene like that. And having said all of that, that was a very good save indeed by Firi. Finidi. Ajax will be delighted to get this man back into the side. Bit of pushing and shoving going on. Well, there's Platini, quick shot of him there. I wonder if he's marveling at the skills of the man I've been talking about. The organisation of this Zambian defence, after an awful opening, I have to say, I must admit. They looked a bit amateurish in the first 5 minutes with the defence, but they've tightened up considerably, and they have to. And sweeping up the back there, Okafor, positive move by him. Away by Chiyangi, playing at the back of that defence, as I said. And so 28 minutes gone by my watch, still one each, still very even after that wonderfully flowing start. 2 goals in the opening 5 minutes. Oh, there's the opening again, and that was Malatoli. And somehow or other, little gaps appeared in that Nigerian defence. Look at that. Malatoli getting right underneath it, though. He'll be annoyed with his defenders. The impassive faces of people who might, I think, as Zambians, I think, might be a little bit worried about how this game is going, because Nigeria had that awful start and then they struck back very quickly within a couple of minutes. And now Yekini is beginning to look awesome. And what they're now doing is giving the ball as much as they can to Amakachi and Okocha in midfield. And the tactics to bring them down a little crude, to say the least. Taking by Olise in midfield, Sunday Olise. At the back, Malatoli. A note of caution, I think, has crept into the game now. That's a bit of ball. Amunike, Yekini up. Now, I think he was complaining that in the middle of that sandwich, he was impeded. Now, watch it again. The two players with him. No, I don't think so. And a look of grim determination on that face. Exactly 15 minutes by my watch to half-time. Now Finidi, just broken up there by Chiyangi. Oh, you can't afford to make mistakes like that. Pushed out to Okocha, looking for a scoring position. Finidi. Beautiful headed away though by Malatoli. Another counter-attack, which unfortunately for Zambia, any of these attacks have just been a little bit ponderous, allowing the Nigerians time to get back quickly. This is Sunday Olise, and the Nigerian midfield beginning to put it together again. Amunike goes away, just a little too much though. While the commentators from around the world might be asking the same sort of questions, why, for example, the Nigerians are not using the pace of Amunike, their goal scorer, the man who scored the equalizer. More often we saw that little spurt that he produced there. And they're blessed, of course, with great width, because on the other side you've got George Finidi. No threat at the back. The sweeper there is Okafor, the captain. Amakachi stretching out for it. Olise, Iroha. Well, proud to be here, I think. And so the beat goes on. Just under 15 minutes remaining of this first half. Still one each. Play bogged down in midfield. No fluency at the moment. Saletti tries to go away. Very closely marked by Oche. Commentators watching the monitors very closely for the replays in particular, and I think one replay earlier on suggested, to me anyway, that Amunike had been brought down in the penalty area and that Nigeria should have hit a penalty kick. It's all a matter of opinion though, and referees don't have the advantage of slow motion replays. Taken there by Okafor to Egwoben, brought into the side from the team that played against the Ivory Coast. There he is. Yekini had come deep for a change. Played away by Mulenga. And I think ominously for Zambia, they're simply not putting enough pressure on this Nigerian defense. And I think we saw a glimpse of Bobby Charlton in the commentary box, which of course he does excellently as a summarizer, doing it for one of the African services. As I said before the game started, I was talking to John Fashanu, who said this game reminded him of the circumstances he played in 1988 Wimbledon-Liverpool Cup final. Everybody thought Liverpool would win, and of course Sanchez got a goal for Wimbledon to win 1-0. And he's so close, even though he's Nigerian, he's so close to the Zambian side. And he feels they have the spirit to bring off a surprise here. High, up and under. Taken here by Kalusha. Not been seen much of the game. He is something of a veteran compared to his younger colleagues, giving some of them 9 years. There he is. That's Kalusha. Doesn't have that little spurt any longer, but he does get a free kick in a very interesting position indeed. So, free kick. Now, they don't have, of course, an Amakachi or a Yekini or an Akocha, as far as we know, to take these kicks. Peter Rufai from Dutch football in goal. Go ahead, Eagles. And it will be Kalusha to take this. Underneath it all the way. Scored 5 goals in the African nations. Disappointing finish, though. The crowd, we don't have the official figure yet, but it's somewhere in the region of 30 to 35,000. And of course, it would have been filled to capacity if Tunisia had remained in the tournament to any length. Olise determined to take this quickly. Well, on the bench, of course, we have the notable figures of Samson Siasia for Nigeria, who plays his football in FC Nantes. But significantly, no place for Victor Ikpiba. However well he's been playing for Monaco. Just doesn't get on with the coach. Well, you could see Peter Rufai had that shot from Kalusha well covered. But at least the Zambians have had 2 clear shots at goal in the last 3 minutes. And that is heartening. Up and deep, and Amakachi lets that go all the way through. And we've seen nothing of the front men in the past 5 minutes. Simply not getting the service. They're having to carve out something themselves. Okocha has disappeared significantly for Nigeria in midfield. Now, this is the man, I think, who could really make them tick. If he can get balls played in behind the defense, then number 11, Emmanuel Amiki, man who plays his club football in Egypt, does have the pace to penetrate this defense. 8 minutes remaining of the first half, still 1 each. Quickly conceded corner kick there, and I think the goalkeeper was in 2 minds whether to come for that or not. So corner kick, and they'll have to keep their eyes on Yekini, Amokachi, away in the far side, Finidi. That's a clear headed a goal, and you know that Zambian defense ought not to allow that. Up and high and straight into the arms of Filido. Yekini brings that down, and I think a kind of half-hearted or choked attempt to appeal for a penalty kick there. I just get the feeling, though, that sooner or later he's going to get the breakthrough. Hooked on there by Iroha, and I think the flag up on the other side. Nice little turn that. Kalusha brought down though. He's been marked very tightly indeed. Egwoven following him right across the field. Still one each. 6 minutes of the first half left. Up deep and well away. There's a little opening. Too many white jerseys around him though. Ochi getting his foot to that. Amokachi back to Egwoven, looking for Finidi. Long and deep towards Yekini, but the goalkeeper's there. Well, the play in the last 15 minutes rather disappointing. Certainly Nigeria have the artillery up front, but the powder is dry at the moment. It's a matter of they're not getting that ammunition. Stiff breeze blowing this afternoon. Nicely laid back to Kalusha. Tries to get a shot in. Side net. Rufai had his eyes on that all the way. Balanced himself well before making that shot, but I think he was finding it difficult to get any space there at all to shoot. And I think Finidi is about to be taken off. That may come as a surprise to you because you perhaps have not noticed anyway that Finidi is on the field. He's been wholly ineffectual. I don't know whether he's carrying an injury or not. Doesn't seem to be too happy. But anyway, Samson Siasia comes on, the player from FC Nantes in France. Finidi has done absolutely nothing in this game. He has a very good reputation. Very reputable player in the Dutch league for Ajax, but almost entirely anonymous in this game. Nicely brought down there by Sakala, but they're up on them very quickly, Nigeria. And there is brought down. That surely is a booking. It really must be. I did point out that Emenike did have a pair of legs that would take him away from defenders, except if they tackle like that. Really getting forward very quickly. And the trouble is he's had virtually no service. Open to scoring, and a goal of course coming from his penetration. To take this, Austin Okocha. Beautifully away there by Malenga. And this defense is holding out. They've only conceded one goal in the tournament. And that after 5 minutes, of course, from the boot of Amunike. Yellow card came up there as we suspected. And Zambia are containing them in midfield. It's not pretty to look at, but it's an effective performance. They're closing down, they're working hard, scurrying about. And that, of course, I think was the principal characteristic of the play in the earlier game. Just lacking the touch of the unexpected in the breakaway. Nigeria have been largely untroubled in defense. I make it about 2.5 minutes to half time. Still one each. Nigeria, who have won this trophy once before against Zambia in the green, who are going for it for the first time ever. I think that time fits in with mine. 1 minute remaining. One each. And this would be a fine time to score a goal. That's exactly what Yekini did in the game against the Ivory Coast, getting the equalizer just before half-time. Fed to him by Finidi, who's now gone off, let me remind you. And the tackle there by Sunday Oliseh. And as I pointed out, a very strong European club influence in this side. The goalkeeper in Dutch football, Amunike, an exception to that, of course, playing in Egypt. There goes Zambia, Kalusha. Neat little ball played out there to Bwalia. Malatole wins a corner kick now. That was a kind of structure we wanted to see in Zambia in counter-attacks. There was a little bit of flair behind that one. Instead of just playing the ball simply through the middle, it did get a little bit of width, and they win a corner. And it comes, shaping high, just beyond Litana, the man who scored from a header in the first couple of minutes. Well, the game certainly settled down into this pattern of determined Zambian playing, defending, working hard in midfield against the occasional flamboyance of Nigeria. And it's ended up at this stage right on half-time as stalemate, and Kalusha is suffering, and quite frankly I thought the tackle on him there was late. There he is, PSV player. Well, he knows how to take it in the tough arena of European football. And I think there may have been a twist there more than anything else. Just feeling that knee gingerly. I think he's going to be all right. Kalusha, an experienced player, and the Zambians, of course, having to reconstruct their side. We're now a minute and a half into stoppage time as Pele absorbs this game. Free kick. I think it should be pointed out, of course, this has been a very tiring tournament. We mustn't forget that. I think the legs are going to go very quickly on this turf. It's very lush, very heavy. Alex Ferguson of Manchester United was talking about how the Wembley turf can be very sapping. Well, so also can this be. The stadium, the Al Menzah in Tunisia, the halftime whistle goes. It is 1-0 in a very absorbing game. That's the halftime score. An explosive start by Zambia. Litana scoring excellent header in the air, and Amunike getting the equalizer as Nigeria tried to prove that they have the capacity to come forward and score almost at will, except that after that Zambia settled in, defended extremely well, worked very hard in midfield, and although occasionally we saw the real potential threat of Yekini, I'm sure one of the most dangerous forward runners in the business in world football. He was marked very closely indeed by an excellent Zambian defence. Just now and again it looked as if he might break them, but they haven't been able to do that, and very significantly Nigeria have taken off George Finidi and brought on Samson Siasia. This was the drooping header that provided the ammunition for Amunike to push in the equalizer. Yekini doing all the hefty fundamental work there. And I think just missed about 10 seconds of that game whilst we were on commercials there. Welcome back to the second half of Nigeria against Zambia, live from the Al Menzah Stadium in Tunisia. The score at halftime, 1-0. 2 goals scored in the first 5 minutes. The first by Litana in the air, a header, and the equalizer by Amunike from Nigeria. Well, somebody, I'm not quite sure who, and I'm not exactly sure precisely when, but somebody around about the time that the Cameroon were entrancing us all in the World Cup in Italy posited the proposition that an African nation would win the World Cup final by the turn of the century. Well, now, if you been watching the earlier games of this tournament, you might have thought that proposition was highly fanciful. On the other hand, there have been some of the games from the quarterfinals on when we've seen the real potential of African football as Zambia pushes forward, including the strong performance of Nigeria twice in this tournament, when it doesn't seem so preposterous at all. One thing is very clear from this tournament: the African nations have learned how to defend, and sometimes it's forgotten that if the Cameroon knew how to defend well, then he wouldn't have lost that famous game they had with England. And Zambia certainly proving good organization, except they can't cut there. Zambia in the lead, a couple of goals now for Amunike. And like any defense, well organized, occasionally leaking, and really exposed there as Amunike picked his spot in the net. Well, we had a marvelous start to the first half, and now a repeat. Only one man at the back there, left on his own, Malatoli, the goalkeeper, a superb goalkeeper, quite exposed. And Nigeria, the favourites, are now 2-1 up. Catching that defence very cold indeed now. Can Zambia come back? I think what Nigeria proved at the start of the first half was if you take a punch in the chin very early on, you've got to come not staggering back, but with a lot of purpose, and that's exactly what they did. Pushing the ball forward up to the pace of Amunike. I did say at the end of the first half that he would turn out to be something special. That's the coach, Clemens Westerhoff. And Zambia have now got to push forward. They've done remarkably well to get to the stage of the tournament, given the tragic circumstances of a year ago, losing all their, or most of the World Cup squad. Well, back to the theme, I think the African nations quite rightly have learned how to organize their defenses. On the other hand, we cannot expect them to be playing like Cameroon in every game that they play. I think that's just expecting a little too much. So what they're providing is solidity, marked by brilliant individual touches by the likes of Yekini there. And number 2 preparing to take this Egwa then from Courtrai in the Belgian second division. Another goal by Nigeria at this stage, and I think all hope of Zambia pulling something off here would go. Nicely touched on there by Okocha. Now they're beginning to trap. Can he lay it off? Amokachi went too wide though. Well, we've seen Amokachi doing this so well for Bruges in the Champions League last year. Okocha trying some of his skills. Played out there by Malatoli. A really explosive start to the second half. This is Malatoli, the other one, the defender. As I said, left entirely on his own there. Somehow or other, I think Zambia have got to pull one back in this next 15 minutes. Malatoli. Finding it very difficult to open the play up on that side. Tall figure of Malatoli again. Now Sakala. I think he was looking for a 1-2. This is Salieti who's come back deep, and a poor ending to all of that. So, if you get good organization, you get the flair in midfield and the power up front, you get a very potent combination, and that is what Nigeria are heading for in the World Cup in the United States. Amokachi. Much more of Nigeria at the start of this half in midfield. Going now, I think, for the killer punch. And then he could settle in as Yekini. He can't be shrugged off the ball. The goalkeeper does well. Yekini still has it, and the referee waves play on. Oh, that's a perfect illustration of just how difficult Yekini can be. Now, 3 times he looked as if he had lost the ball and fought back so well to keep it. Up he gets, and the ball just skidding away from him eventually. But the problem for Zambia now is that whilst the game has been based in the first half on very deep defense and getting their midfield players back very quickly, they've now got to push forward, and that could be fatal against Yekini, and I think he gets a free kick this time. Mind you, he had to get it by the law of averages, because some of the tackling on both he and Amuniki in particular has been rather rough. And quite frankly, I think Amuniki should have had a penalty kick in the first half. So Nigeria leading by 2 goals to 1. And if you've been watching our coverage, you will have seen that Yekini scored a free kick against Gabon from roughly this position. Bulleted it round the defence right into the top corner. A remarkable free kick. Westerhoff looking primly on. He's not taking it on Okocha this time. Brilliantly saved. Totally missed by Amokachi though. I think the Nigerians accrue the benefit from Amokachi and his runs from midfield. And that's the player I talked about, Okocha, who tried them a couple of free kicks in the first half. I think they're trying to vary it a little. Yekini, whilst he scored that goal, brilliant goal, had a couple of very bad efforts against the Ivory Coast in the semi-final, and that's why I think the coach has decided to vary the play a little. You're watching Nigeria leading by 2 goals to 1 in the African Nations Cup final in Tunisia. Against Zambia in the green. There's the Zambian coach, Ian Porterfield, thoughtful as ever, talking and thinking his way through this game. And let me repeat, it is absolutely marvellous for Zambia to have got here, given that that air crash deprived them of a real crop of genuinely mature and talented players. So in a sense, their cup final is in getting here. All credit to them. John Fashion, who I was talking to before the game, was saying that the Zambian coaches were quite convinced the Nigerian defence was leaking a little bit because it was rather aged. Well, Stephen Keshi hasn't played from the start. He's on the bench. He's 32 years of age, almost 33 in fact. And I think the Nigerians will have to look at that defence before they go to the States. So in place of him is Uchenna Okafor, younger player. And that Nigerian defence was caught cold in the first 3 minutes when Letana came up and out-jumped the defence to score the opening goal. But now they're trailing by 2 goals to 1, Zambia. Daniel Amokachi. Still to put one in the net here in this tournament. Zambia is still playing carefully and thoughtfully in midfield. Somewhat the same way that the Ivory Coast did, although I don't think Zambia have quite the talented players they had in midfield. The Ivory Coast, as you might know if you watched our highlights, won third place game. Free kick, and to Nigeria, right on the touchline. Oh, referee said it's a throw. Sounded a sharp whistle blow for the free kick. Now, Kalusha. Well, I feel sorry for Saileti up front there. He's been largely left on his own, Saeed Saileti. He's a young player. Well, of course, that is forced upon a manager. And he does need a little bit of support around him, and it hasn't come in this game. They've been relying on him to try and pick up a breakaway. But they are crowding midfield, as you can see, making it difficult for Nigeria to get going again, even though they're trailing by 2-1. This is the player I was talking about, Sayeti. Back to Chiyangi. Kalusha. Kalusha is the genuine playmaker in this side. Malitoli. Good run by Malitoli. Forward for a 1-2, and I think wins a corner kick. Brave player who took a stitch on the head, or just on the eyebrow, in the first half. Although he has been booked in this game, he doesn't take prisoners, that man. Goes for the short one though. Is Litana in for it? He is indeed. Well, courageously trying to put the pressure on Nigeria now. Run forward here by Chiyangi. Nobody backing him up though. They've got to watch the break here. Now there's a little ball through. That looks good. Sayeti out to the side. Could this be the equalizer? No, great save. Rufai's in there. And was a push. Well, as I expected, they got the big man forward. And Kalusha coming in there, laid it off to the side. And out came Peter Rufai to foil him. Really deserving an equalizer for the way they've come back at Nigeria. But they cannot miss chances like that. They built that up beautifully. They did get enough players forward, even though it is going to be dangerous to leave themselves exposed at the back. That's a free kick. And we're now seeing much more of Zambia. Malitoli brought down. That was quickly read by the defense. Hooked away there by Iroha on the far side. Now the breakaway in Amakachi doesn't have the control. Doesn't seem to be as skilled in these breakaways as Yukini. And nothing very much in midfield of Samson Siasia, who replays George Finidi. And that was a scything movement, very late indeed. Free kick. I make it exactly 15 minutes gone in the second half. Nigeria leading by 2-1. Well, there was the movement. He reached out, side forward like that. I think an act of desperation. Well, I thought Yukini was bumped in the back. Referee is being rather charitable, I think. Oh, he's annoyed, and Westerhoff cannot believe that decision. Ochi's got to watch it. I think he felt one of his colleagues should have come up and given him support. We've had Mulenga going off. Mulenga for Zambia has gone off. And Menzah is on now. Came on as a substitute in the semi-final as well. Played very well. They want a lot of running in midfield now. Well, all the better football coming from Zambia in this last 5 minutes. Yekini has to come back deeper, try to pick the ball up himself. Starved of service in the last 5 minutes, and a bad shot there. Way off target. Sunday Olise. Well, if I were the Nigerian coach, I'd be slightly concerned at the moment. The fluency has got out of Nigerians' play. There's no great menace about the Zambian attack, but they are getting possession a lot. And they might just sneak an opening. Push forward there as Zambia again crowding midfield, trying once more to get it through to Salyeti, but you could see clearly on his own again. And by the way, there's nothing unusual about this pattern. I've watched Nigeria play in these games in this tournament. And for long spells, they seem out of it. They seem to be drifting away, the concentration lapsing, lack of possession in midfield. And then suddenly, you get a nice touch by Okocha, sudden run by Amakatchi or Olise, finding Yekini, and bang, the explosion happens. And don't let it be said I haven't warned the Zambians about that. But at the moment, Nigeria seem quite content. They don't look at all ruffled. Give the impression that only 2-1 up, that they have this game well under control. And that is a risky exercise. Zambia still sticking to the game plan of having that one man up there, but a very good second half performance by Kalusha. Very brave one too at the age of 30. The legs are lasting after a very tiring tournament, and he's starting to drift away from his markers. Corner kick, which going a begging, and the crowd murmuring in sympathy there with Latana, the man who scored that opening goal. Awkward little bounce there, and it's from that position, almost the same, that he got his goal. Just couldn't quite get enough on it that time. Still, Zambia courageously battling, 2-1 behind. Now Yekini, this is the break I was talking about. There we are, one miss. But there may be others. It happens so frequently. And I think from that angle, it was difficult to tell at first. The goalkeeper had got a touch on that. I think not eventually, but he stretched themselves out. Well, that's the pattern I predicted. That breakaway coming out of nothing, and Zambia left the door wide open at the back. Interestingly enough, whilst I've been praising Yekini rightfully, in the second half against the Ivory Coast, he missed no fewer than 5 run-ins and goal like that. It strikes me that Yekini is a much better player in a tight situation when he doesn't have too much time to think. When instinct takes over, like that superb goal he scored against Zaire, the second one. So that might be a little flaw in his play. He just gets caught in 2 or 3 minds when he's running in and goal like that. Down the line it goes. That'll be a free kick. Which way? Well, they were both at it by my mind, but the referee, Chong, right on top of it. He goes to the United States, of course, in the summer to be a referee there. I wouldn't say he's had a superb game. I think he should have given Nigeria a penalty kick, and it's been a little bit lenient. Now, Kalusha. A little hitch kick, but the referee will blow for that. Quite illegal. Free kick, and I make it. We're just about halfway through the second half. Nigeria still leading as we watch this game direct from the Menzah Stadium in Tunisia, leading by 2-1. And that's the profile of a very stern-looking Dutchman who I think realized that had he lost this game, or were he to lose it to get the tense right, I think he would be out of a job. I know how Zaire miss a player like an Amakachi or a Yekini. Their football is dainty and organized, but they don't bustle enough to break down this defense. The Nigerians physically very much stronger. And I think this is where they're going to score in the metaphorical sense in the United States. They'll like the climate, they'll drive forward, they've plenty of energy, they've got lots of stamina, and as you can see, they can mix it. Hard down there, this time Malatoli. And the yellow card. Back he goes, everybody, I think, going into the box, but they decided on the short one, played by Shiyangi. Little touch on Sayedi, controls that very nicely. Iroha. Well, Zambia have been playing so well that Iroha, who is a very good attacking fullback, scored perhaps the defender's goal of the tournament against the Ivory Coast. He's been lying deep in his own half. That's what I meant by the lack of Yekini or Amakachi. They've got trickery enough there. Oh, Malatoli shielded that well. And wanting players to come up beside him. Almost 25 minutes gone of the second half. Still 2-1 for Nigeria. The game, of course, will go to extra time and penalties if Zambia wear this defense down. And the Johnson Bwalya coming on. Johnson Bwalya, who played in all of these games, coming off the bench, replacing the other Bwalya. Related, of course. 26 years of age, Johnson Bwalya. Westerhoff signaling instructions there. Oh, I think you'll be happy if Nigeria can hold on to this, like the skills of Amakacha. And there's a driving shot there. Samson Siasia. Now, about 5 minutes ago, I said he'd been absolutely anonymous in the second half, and he stepped out of the shadow into the sun with that blistering shot. A very good save indeed. The man from FC Nantes in France. And yes, a nod of the head of agreement with that from Westerhoff. No, all the way underneath it. And so 20 minutes of this game left. The Nigerians still lead. And 2 warnings to Zambia that whilst they've had much more possession in midfield, that they have this kind of power, the shooting power, the running power. We've seen it from different sources: Siasia, Yekini and Okocha. Sakala. Well, that's what I said about the daintiness of the football, but it's broken up in that rugged defensive wall of Nigeria. That's better. This is the skilled man in the team. Okocha looks for the 1-2. It's a great effort there. Oh no, that's more like Nigeria. Wonderful little run, great control. He had left his man for dead in midfield, got the 1-2 on, and then a dreadful finish there by Amaniki. This is where it all started. Drifting away from defenders, and now the attack by Salieti at the other end. And the game has come alive again after all that neutral, benign play in midfield. The counter-attack, but I think very significantly, note this name, Austin Okocha, 21 years of age, from Eintracht Frankfurt, of course, in the Bundesliga, whom you saw with that delightful skill in midfield and a powerful run forward. I think he will be a notable figure in the World Cup. He's not the household name as Okocha, tired now. And I think he was nursing an injury before this game, risked by the coach. He'd had an ankle knock, so we are told, and I think it's decided that he's tired and brought off because he's been mixing it very well in midfield. Yekini, this is the power I was talking about. A little bit selfish there. Could have laid it off. Yes, the ball went over. That's the time we have left. Nigeria leading by 2-1, and Zambia now, if not exactly throwing caution to the wind, have got to be a little more adventurous if they want to save this game. That's more like it. Played in now. Where's Sayeti now? Rufai looking very good. The 30-year-old goalkeeper from Go Ahead Eagles, leaping high above everybody here. Beautifully curved ball there by Sakala. Running the outside. High enough. Where's Yekini for this? No, the goalkeeper's there. And I think Philly may just have taken his eye off the ball towards that burly figure coming on top of him. Now I think the pace has increased by Zambia here. They realize the clock is against them now. 2-1 behind. Chongo. Not enough green jerseys in there though. Now they've got it. Try to play it wide. There's a little 1-2, well read there by Okafor. Bit of pushing. Zambia trying hard to battle their way through, and they lack just a little bit of subtlety there. That was easily read by the Nigerian defense. Nigeria doing absolutely nothing in midfield just now. All they're doing is defending. And what they'll hope to do is hit the long ball towards Yekini. Well, that's a dangerous one. Great save, is it? And no! Brilliant piece of play there by Zambia. An instinctive save there. Hooked round by Malatoli. And down at the second effort there by Rufai. Now this is the save that really mattered. The first one, as Malatoli got his toe to it. And then he gets the protection of the referee. Very good piece of goalkeeping. No time to think there. Unfortunate for Malatoli. And when time's running out, so also sometimes truly does your luck. Beautifully away there by Bitana at the back now. Amokachi looks for the little space through the defense. Well read by Litana. Now there's a little space to operate in here. This is a really brave effort by Zambia. Westerhoff screaming at his defense. And look how Nigeria are backtracking. That's better play to the edge of the box. Shot a goal off the post! What a wonderful shot that was. And that man is getting grayer by the minute. Simply superb, and oh dear, Zambia really deserve an equalizer for the way they played, and for the way Kalusha hammered that in, but here's a breakaway. They had to watch. Amokachi ran out of steam. And I'm not quite sure what Westerhoff is trying to indicate. Look at that shot, almost taking the woodwork away. And isn't that cruel? I did say a few seconds earlier, the time runs out, and so also does your luck when you're pushing a game. Well, that would be enough to bring tears to the eyes of any coach. But on the other hand, he must be proud of the way that Zambia have fought back. They might have been killed off early in the game, losing that vital goal so early in the second half, and Egwoben, the defender, booked, I think, wasting time. As I said, he plays in the Belgian second division. The referee quite unperturbed about his look of dissent. Hook to the edge, and look at the gap in that defense away out in the left. There was no cover there. Amaniki was hovering in the background. Now the crowd roaring Zambia on. Every neutral in the stadium has become a Zambian supporter. Listen to the support behind them. Squares the ball, but a cluster of white jerseys there. We're now almost into the last 10 minutes. Still, Zambia coming forward. Surely a free kick. Referee waves play on. And Zambia seem to be playing on the crest of an emotional tide. I think that is giving them that extra adrenaline. Crowd roar them on. There's a little touch at the edge of the penalty area, and Nigeria desperately clearing. And Westerhoff is now like some crazed marionette out on the touchline, gesticulating, trying to get some life out of his team in midfield, where they have largely disappeared. 10 minutes remaining. Zambia, the fight of their lives now. 2-1 down. And everybody back for Nigeria defending. Oh, this is stirring stuff by Zambia. Amokachi. These are the kinds of runs I was talking about by Amokachi. He either goes himself or knocks it away in front of Yukini, who'd been pushed back, and I'm sure Pele must be admiring the fighting, courageous spirits of this side in green. The crowd chanting Zambia as he still come forward. Kalusha's had a marvellous second half. Up and under, where's the goalkeeper? They've got players forward, hit it away though. Ochi got up there. Yakini on his own. Look at the jerseys around him. The crowd don't like it. Yakini with it. One burst from him and it could kill it off. This is so typical Nigerian. Amakachi hovering in the middle. And tired legs, though that defence may have, they're holding out. Neatly played round the side. What a marvellous job Ian Porterfield has done, and Platini, Michel Platini enjoying this as the crowd roars Zambia on, fighting to get this equaliser. In it comes, another effort this time. Back it come. Amakachi very deep indeed. Yakini nowhere near it. Nigeria simply giving the ball away. That white wall, I think, is going to stay there to the end of the game. They're not going to be trying anything too adventurous. And the favourites at the moment in midfield anyway, being given the runaround. And there's still time for Zambia to save this game. 8 minutes remaining. This is where they've been very good, working for each other in midfield. These long balls not so effective. They're better when they're playing the ball close on the ground, knocking it about. I think it's going to be a nerve-wracking moment for both sets of supporters. Really is surprising, you know, when Nigeria scored that second goal by Amunike, his second of the game. Not for one moment did I think he would end the last 10 minutes holding on like a prize fighter, groggy on the ropes. But that's the way it's turned out to be. Look at this fight by Zambia, and he was pulled back there. Superb second half performance by Kalusha, number 11. And everybody in Zambia must be proud of him. Little push there, and I think, well, I would have put it the other way, to be honest. Okafor sweeping up there for Nigeria, and so little of the game left. Malatoli will come up for this. In it goes. Corner kick. Right into the middle of the penalty area goes Malatoli. Right on the goal line. Kalusha to take it. Not such a good one that time. The pressure eased. Was played out there by Amunike, who'd come back way deep in defense. Listen to the whistling in the stadium. Now Yakini, can he knock it back? He chests the ball down, he's got it, scores the woodwork. He took the words out of my mouth. That would have killed it, stone dead. Now he chested it down brilliantly. And it was here he took it too finely. And if he had laid it back, he had Amakachi just lying inside him. And that would have really killed the game off. Zambia trying to fight back. We are now into the last 5 minutes. Yakini taking Amakachi this time, taking 2 players with them. And there are very tired legs out there, especially the Zambians, who found and dug deep down into hidden resources and found them, and are playing on that extra high. But it's still 2-1. The goalkeeper, James Philly. Well, I talked about tired legs. That looked like it there from that corner kick. Kocha. Oh, there it's chested down again. Yekini wanted a goal himself, though. A little bit selfish. Wins a corner kick again. And you could see the way he chested it down. He wanted to put it in. Nobody else. Now 4 minutes left. Still 2-1. And this will do Nigeria. They want the ball at this end. Even if they don't get a goal, they want to keep it deep, deep, deep in Zambians' half. Siasia coming up for it at the back. Hammered well away, but time is running out for them. I now make it exactly 3 minutes left. I don't think, with the exception perhaps of Kalusha in the second half, it would be fair to single out Zambian players. It has been a total team effort. Ian Porterfield has done his homework well, beautifully organised, have closed the right players down and walked away. They lack a notable player, a notable goal scorer up front. And I think that at the end is where they might, at the final hurdle, fail. At the back, Litana. That is a very tight one, though. Want to push forward, Chongo. I don't think they've anything to lose now. They really have to throw caution to the winds. Seconds remaining. Easily knocked away by Okafor. Nice touch by Amokachi. Yekini is very deep. Now Litana, who scored that goal. Now remember the lateness of the Ivory Coast goal in the game. Game which went into penalties, and I think it's going to be a corner kick. Yes, it is. They were unsure about it. We're in the last minute. Up it comes Litana with a header across the goal, and there's Rufai. Now, he won't want to send it downfield too quickly. Up from Malatol, he said, over the crossbar, and that might just be the last effort in the game. Could be a little stoppage time. Sweeping up at the back, Okafor. Well, Nigeria's best performances certainly coming against the Ivory Coast and Zaire, there's no doubt about that. Second half, very disappointing Nigerian performance, but they have held on to the lead. Free kick, they'll have to rush to take it. We're into stoppage time in the African Nations Cup final, as you can see. And that's a wise move, just hit it to the far end of the field. That's all they're required to do. Time is against them. We've seen a particularly courageous fight in the second half. Kalusha, tempting ball, just a trifle too near Peter Rufai. Well, whenever this man has been put to the test, he hasn't been found wanting. Good in the air, and one or two good instinctive saves. Zambia, who have never won this trophy, are now playing in stoppage time. 2-1 down to Nigeria. Nigeria were beaten in the final in 1984, 88 and 90, but not this one. Nigeria are the new champions of Africa. Onto the field come their entourage of supporters, of officials, and there, their very truthful support. Clemens Westerhoff, the coach who really must have been in tenterhooks throughout the second half, as Zambia had so much of the play, is now a relieved man. Off go the Nigerian players to celebrate.